Welcome to Bedtime History. Tonight we're going to learn about one of the best-known founding fathers named Benjamin Franklin. A founding father was someone who helped start our country. Some have also called Benjamin Franklin the first American because he had so many of the traits that would become known as American, such as hard work and independence. Independence is when you do something for yourself. Ben Franklin was born in Boston, Massachusetts to a very large family. He had 17 brothers and sisters. His family didn't have very much money, so he only went to school for 2 years. But he did spend a lot of time reading on his own. He also learned to write and enjoyed doing it. When he was still young, he worked for his older brother, who was a printer. A printer would print newspapers and books for other people. Printing was important because it was the best way to share an idea someone had. They would use little metal letters and build entire pages of words and sentences, then use black ink to make copies of those metal letters. Because Ben was working for his older brother, he was called an apprentice. An apprentice is someone who is learning how to become a master at something, like printing. While Ben was working as a printer, he also liked to write for the newspaper they were printing. He would use a fake name to write in the newspaper and use the name Silence Dogood. He pretended to be an old lady and would write funny jokes. Many people in the town thought this was very funny, and didn't know it was young Ben writing the jokes. After a few years, Ben left his brother's shop and found a new printer to work for. His job was to set the metal letters in the big printing machine. He was also a clerk, a shopkeeper, and a bookkeeper. He liked to stay busy and to learn all he could while he was working. Around this time, when he was about 20 years old, Ben made a group of friends who also liked to read. Books cost a lot of money to buy, and there were no libraries, so Ben and his friends started their own library, sharing books. They would share the books they read, and they would meet together to talk about what they had read. Later in his life, Ben would help start some of the first libraries in America, because he knew reading and learning were so important. After working for other printers for many years, Ben started his own printing shop. He would write about his own ideas and use parts of the paper to talk about good morals. Morals are the things that are good to do in life, like being honest, being kind, not stealing, and working hard. Ben would make lists of what he wanted to do better each day, then at the end of the day would check the boxes on what he did good at and make note of what he needed to do better. He believed changing himself and trying to be a little better at something each day was very important. Ben was also very interested in science and invention. He studied electricity. At the time, no one had electricity, which means they had no lights or electronics like we do today. Once Ben saw lightning during a storm and thought that it must be electricity. And sometimes fires started when lightning hit tall buildings. So Ben had the idea to put a metal pole on the top of buildings, so when the lightning struck the pole, it would go into the ground rather than starting a fire. This invention was called a lightning rod, and it helped many people stay safe. Many people think that Ben used a kite to discover lightning was electricity, but he really just wrote about the idea and someone else tried it. Ben also invented a certain type of eyeglasses called bifocals, which allowed someone to see differently depending on the part of the glasses they were looking through. Ben also liked to play chess. He also created the first fire department to help with fires that were a problem where he lived. He also helped start some of the first colleges in America. From his newspaper and his inventions in writing about science, Ben Franklin became very well known in America and Europe. When many Americans started disagreeing with England about taxes, Ben was on the side of the Americans who wanted change. He wrote about his ideas and even helped Thomas Jefferson write the Declaration of Independence. The Declaration of Independence was a paper that they wrote to tell England they wanted to be their own country and to be free. Soon a war began between America and England, so Ben took a ship far across the ocean to ask France to help America. The French people loved Ben Franklin. He liked to wear a furry hat and talk about science and his inventions. They thought he was interesting and fun to talk to. France ended up helping America fight the war and later win against England. In his new country, Ben helped put together the first Constitution. The Constitution was a list of laws that would help the country stay together and work right. To the end of his life, Ben did all he could to help make America a strong and good country. Earlier we talked about some of the morals, good things we should do, that Ben wrote about in his paper. Ben wasn't a perfect person like all of us, but he wanted to do good things. He wrote about temperance. Temperance is not doing too much of something, such as eating. We need good food for our bodies, but too much of it isn't always a good thing. We can usually tell by how much our stomachs feel when we're eating. He also taught about silence. Sometimes it's good to speak up, but other times it's better to spend more time listening and thinking about what we should say, because sometimes if we don't think, we say things that aren't kind or we really don't mean. Order. Order means to think about what we are doing and have a plan. We shouldn't spend all our time doing the same thing, but giving the right amount of time to each good thing. He wrote about frugality. Frugality means to be careful with the money you have. It's easy to want to spend all of your money or to always want things, but it's better to spend money on the things you need and to save some. It's okay to spend some of the money on fun things, but just not all of it. Industry. Industry means to stay busy doing useful things. Each day we can make a plan of what we want to do and then get to work. Having fun is good in its own time, but we should also spend time learning, helping others, and getting chores and other things done. Justice. This means treating others well and doing our best to make things fair. Cleanliness. We should take care of our bodies by keeping them clean, bathing each day, and brushing our teeth. Like Ben, we can do our best to live by teachings like this each day. You can even keep track of them like Ben did in his journal and make lists. You can also read and learn and come up with new ideas that will help other people, like Ben's lightning rod. You can also be courageous and stand up for good things, like he did during the Revolution.